Okay, this is 6.2 day notes, and I would start with just doing the bell work, and then I pause the video, and then when you start it back, I'll have the answers on there so you can check your work. As just a reminder, this first one has the vertex at the center, so that's a central angle. So the angle equals the arc. Number 2, the vertex is at point E, which is on the circle, so that's inscribed. And that formula is angle equals 1/2 arc. And then on 3, you're looking for arc MN, which is here. So you're going to want to look at where these angles open up. So that is, MN is the arc for the angle that's 2x plus 3. And then the other angle shares that same arc. Okay, so think about how you can write that equation. So go ahead here and pause to solve. When you click play, the answers will all pop up. Okay, I ran into a couple things that I wanted to go over here. So number 1, we had all the way around the circle, they gave us a value for each. So I set my total for 360. That came out to x equals 21. I plugged into JM here and got 143. And then I wanted to note that on this one, JL, you want to make sure you don't go this way because that would be a major arc. And since this was 2 letters, it was a minor. So that means I need this. So all of here. So I already have the 1 is 90. And then I want to plug 21 into 4x plus 1. So that gave me 85. And then I add 85 and 90. To give me 175 degrees, which is still less than 180. So make sure these are both minor. They should be less than 180. And they were, so that's a good sign. Okay, number 2, 78 was the angle. I made x the arc since we didn't have that, and it's what we were looking for. Then I plugged into the formula. I got x equals 156. So here, since I made x the arc, I don't have to plug in, it's just that is my answer. All right, and 3, their arcs were they shared this arc. So if the arc is equal, so is the angle. So I set those equal, got x equals 20, but they do want the arc. So I can plug into either of these. It doesn't matter. If I plug into this one, I'll get 43. If I plug into this one, I get 43. These are inscribed angles. So that's angle equals 1/2 arc. So if I plug in 43 for my angle, I want to divide by 1/2. You can also think that the angle doubles to get the arc here. So double 43, that is the same as dividing by 1/2, even though it sounds kind of weird. So that is going to give us arc MN is 86 degrees. All right, and then starting on to days. So area and circumference you have already probably done before, but we will review those. So area is the amount of flat space a circle takes up. So you want to think it's like the inner part, okay? The formula is A equals pi times r squared. And circumference is the distance around the outside of the circle. So like the measurement, like if you use a measuring tape around here. And this one actually has 2 formulas. If you're given radius, you use C equals 2 pi r. If you're given diameter, you use C equals pi d. And the reason for that is if you double the radius, you get the diameter. So that's where that 2 is coming from. All right, so kind of answered this next one, but the radius is half of the diameter, and the diameter is double the radius. So 1 through 6, you're going to find each missing measure by plugging that in and finding the missing variable, round to the nearest tenth. So on number 1, if you're given 13 feet, find r is 13, find the area. So I think on your homework they give you the picture, so it looks like this, and then it's like, okay, the radius is 13, find area. So I just want to use this formula. So I'll plug in there. So A, I don't have area, so I'm leaving that as A, equals pi times 13 squared. Okay, on your calculator, make sure you use the pi symbol, not 3.14. Okay, so on my calculator, it's the second button, and then the little caret that looks like that. That will give you pi. Okay, so on number 1, I would type that in. So I'm gonna do, and try to type these with me so you are checking that you know how to type it in. Make sure you include the squared. So I got area is approximately 530.9. Okay, 2 is essentially the same thing, but they did give us the diameter. So on a circle, that's going to look like this. And it says find circumference. Circumference is the one that has 2 formulas, but since they gave us diameter, I want to use this one. So C equals pi times, instead of D, I'm going to put 20. So 20 times pi is just going to be a circumference of approximately 62.8. All right, number 3, they give us the area, they want the radius. So instead of putting A here, I'm going to put 132 equals, and the rest of the formula is pi times r squared. So you want to think, okay, how can I get r by itself? Well, I can divide by pi. So 132 divided by pi is about 42, because it was 0.01, so just 42 really. And I have r squared left on this side. To get rid of squared, you take the square root. That kind of cancels it out. So that's going to give me r is approximately, because 42 is not a perfect square, approximately 6.5. Okay, now given circumference is 121, so instead of C, I write 121, find the diameter. So I want to use pi d since I'm looking for diameter, and I'll just divide by pi. So that gives me a diameter of approximately 38.5. Okay, now 5 and 6 are a little bit tougher. They give us the area and they want the circumference. So you're going to have to start with finding the radius and go from there. So area formula is A equals pi r squared. So for A, I'm going to write 32.23 pi r squared. So you're going to solve this just like we did on 3. So divide by pi. Gives me 10.3. And I'm left with r squared. You cannot finish with r squared. You have to get rid of the squared. So I do the square root. And that gives me r is approximately 3.2. Now, find the circumference. So since they want that, I'm now going to do my formula 2 pi r, because I have r, not diameter, and just plug that in. So 2 times pi times r is now 3.2, and multiply all those. So 2 times 3.2 times pi, and I get C is, our circumference is approximately 20.1. Okay, kind of the same thing on this one, but flipped. So if the circumference is 48.6, find the area. So for area, you need radius. So find radius first. So I want to use 2 pi r instead of pi d. All right, in this case, I can divide by 2 and pi at the same time to cancel those out. if you do it this way, which is what I typically do to save some time, but you have to put parentheses around the 2 pi. Otherwise, it gives me a really big number. I actually did that and then realized, whoa, that seems large, that seems off. What happened? So you have to use parentheses if you do that. Let me show you the kind of alternate method down here. If not, if you don't want to worry about that, oops, you can just divide by 2, okay, and then take your answer and divide by pi. Okay, either way, but use parentheses if you're doing the 2 and the pi at the same time. So that gave me 7.7 approximately is the radius. Okay, if I did it down here, if I did it this way, you should still get the same thing. Okay, so be careful on that one though. All right, so I have R now. So I want to find the area. So I'm going to say A equals pi times 7.7 squared. And type that in. Gives me an area of 186.3. All right, good. All right, this next section is a little bit going to be a little new. I know the last page had some new stuff, but some you hopefully had seen before. So arc length is the measure of an intercepted arc. So intercepted arc means like where these 2 segments from the angle, it's going to be this portion of the outside of the circle. So that's the arc length there. Okay, and is a portion of the circumference, because the circumference is all the way around the outside. Okay, now sector area is the square space taken up, meaning like, you know, like if you have a house, you want the square footage, just means like you answer in something squared. So that's that space, the actual space inside, which is a portion of the circle's area. All right, so we're going to use a proportion to solve these types of problems. So if you look at this long proportion here, you're using the left side of the proportion when you're finding arc length. Okay, so by left side, I mean I can't only use this. I've got to use this and the middle because it still needs to be 2 ratios, which is enough for a proportion. And then you're going to use the right side, meaning the middle and the right, when finding sector area. You plug the radius in, so the problem will give you the radius, into either the circumference formula here or the area formula here. And whatever you're solving for, so either the arc length or the sector area, that will be your x. All right, so 1 and 2, we have to draw the picture and then work it out. So circle A, so that means my center is at A, has a radius of 14, so that's here, and a central angle of 132. So you just want to draw that angle somewhere in the circle. And I know if it's 132, it's greater than a 90, which would be like this, right? But it's less than 180, which would be here and form a straight line. So maybe it's like in here-ish. And that doesn't have to be perfect by any means. Little double apostrophes is the symbol for inches, so put that. Okay, I want you to think about underlining what they're asking for. So I'm finding the length of the intercepted arc. All right, well that's going to be arc length, not sector area. So I'm using this left side, or the left 2 ratios here. So in the top, so top left, that is my x, because they said find the length of the intercepted arc, so x. On bottom, they give me radius, so I want to use this, so 2 times pi, but we said plug in the radius. The radius was 14. Okay, on the right side, you put the angle measure they give you, so that is my 132. And ratios are like part out of the whole. So this top part is like my part. Well, the whole for a circle would be 360. And that shouldn't change each time. That's going to be the same. Okay, hopefully you remember on proportions we cross multiply. Okay, so 360 times x is 360x. Now this other side, yes, you're going to multiply it all out, but I don't necessarily have to have your full answer here because I don't want you to round it, okay? So I'm going to show you here. So in my calculator, I'm typing 132 times 2 times pi symbol times 14. Okay, that gave me like 11611, so like 11,000. So it's going to be a really big number. 3, 2, dot, dot, dot. I'm going to put dot, dot, dot because it keeps going. If you want to just put equals answer, I'm fine with that, okay? Someone asked me if they could do that on the quiz. That's fine. Reason being, do not clear your calculator, okay? Because you cannot round until the very end, and that will mess up your answer. So you want to think, okay, well, I would just then divide by 360, which cancels, and I divide this by 360. So on your calculator, once you have that multiplied answers, just click divide by 360. So your calculator should say answer divided by 360. Okay, enter. That gives me x is approximately 25, so that'll make it 3. 5 or more, add 1 more. All right. So see if you can take a minute, see if you can just set up number 2. So pause on your end, and then when you click play, I'll have it all there for you. So, okay, I just drew the circle so I could talk you through on this. Central angle was 51, radius of 22, and we are trying to find the area of the sector of a circle. So I'm going to use the right side of my proportion. The angle is 51, which is out of the total of 360. Sector area is my x, or what I'm looking for. And then I want to plug in pi times 22 squared. All right, next you cross multiply, which is going to give us 360x. And remember, you can just put like answer, because you're going to type in your calculator 51 times pi times 22 squared, which is like 77,000 something. I'll write it in parentheses just so you can kind of check it. Remember, I'm not rounding it, so that's why I put the dot, dot, dot. So divide by 360. So x is approximately 215.4. And since it's area, that's technically inches squared, but typically on the test, I just look for your number. Okay, for 3 through 6, it says given a regular polygon, regular just means that all the sides are equal, is inscribed, so that means the edges, the vertices of the polygon are on the circle, so they're inscribed angles. And it has a radius of 18 centimeters. So if you remember last unit, we like connected from the center to these edges. Then find the length of a arc AB in the figure shown, given that points A and B are consecutive, meaning beside or right next to in order, consecutive vertices. So on 3, like this could be A, this could be B. If I put A and B here, it doesn't matter, as long as it's any two next to each other, because since all of these sides are congruent, all of these arcs will be congruent, okay? But they're only asking for 1. It says find the length of arc AB. So we're looking for this. All right, so they did give us the radius, so that means this is 18, which is congruent to all of these, but they did not give us that angle, and we need the angle in order to do the center part of our proportion, okay? So we do this the same as we did last unit on that question at the end. So the total is 360. If I want to split this one into 1, 2, 3, 4 parts, I would divide by 4. So this is 1, 2, 3, 4, right? And that makes each angle be 90. Now I have enough to solve my proportion. So I would do its arc length. So I want to do the left side of the proportion. So this is my x. Arc length here is a proportion of the circumference. So I want to do my my formula using radius. So 2 times pi times 18 equals the angle out of 360. So angle measures 90 out of 360, and now cross multiply. So now you solve just like we did on 1 and 2. All right, so 360x equals, type all of that into your calculator. So I'm going to do 90 times 2 times pi times 18. Hold on, my calculator wasn't on. Okay, I got like 10,000 something. Remember, you can just put answer, or you can put, you know, with the continuing on. So 10,178.7 ... Main thing is I do not want you to clear this answer off your calculator. Leave it on there. Okay, so you're actually going to type in, like when you type that, it'll say answer divided by 360. That's what your calculator will actually say. And enter, and I get 28.27, so that's 28.3. All right, so take a pause, look at 3, and go ahead and try 4 on your own. When you click play, all the answers will be here. So it's important to pause it and try to do it for yourself, okay? Okay, just want to let you check this setup here. So I cross multiply, that's 360x. And then when you cross multiply this way, that's where you don't have to type, you don't have to write the whole answer. But when you type it in your calculator, you should get like 13,000 something. Don't clear your calculator, but divide by 360. And that gives me approximately, it's 37.699, so that's 37.7. All right, 5 and 6 are exactly the same. If you want to do them for practice, it's not a bad idea at all, but I'm not going to go over those today. I will pause here in a second and write the answer on there so you can see what it is, okay? Okay, this last portion is a little bit different. So, oh, sorry, and there were the answers for 5 and 6 if you want them. On 7 and 8, it says find the radius given the arc length. So we're given the arc length by a central angle. They don't give us the angle though. And it's approximately 5.76, so that's the arc length. And the sector formed has an area of approximately 15.84. So that's the area. So the difference here is on your proportion. So if you flip back to the previous page, we're not given the angle, and we really don't have a way to find it here, but we are given the parts that are usually our x, okay? So we are actually going to use the left and right side of the formula instead of like the middle and the left, the middle and the right, okay? So it's going to be, I'll write like what it is before we plug in. So it's going to be arc length, which is a proportion of the circumference, which is, well, here I'll just put 2 pi r, and then sector area out of the area, the whole area. So we put the formula of pi r squared. All right, so now we're plugging in. So it says the arc length is 5.76. So instead of arc length, I'm going to write 5.76 on top. 2 times pi. We don't have the radius, which is usually where we plug that in, but we don't, so we leave that as r. And then the sector area is 15.84, and that will be over the area formula. So you may notice we do only have one variable, which is good, but the variable is r now instead of x like we did before, okay? So now we're going to go ahead and cross multiply. I do not want you to multiply out pi in this situation. So what I'm going to do first is just, instead of actually multiply it out, I'm just going to like stick everything together like I would be multiplying it. So 5.76 times pi times r squared, that was this side, equals 15.84. Actually, I am going to multiply that, sorry. I'm going to do the 15.84 with the 2, but leave the pi and the r, okay? So 15.84 times 2. So essentially only multiply like your constants, whereas this section, 5.76 was the only number, okay? So 15.84 times 2 is 31.68. I keep the pi and the r, so I'm not multiplying those out. Only multiply the regular numbers or the constants. Okay, so your goal is to solve for r, so you want to get r by itself. And I'm going to start with this left side because I want to move the small number over and divide it into the big number. So I'm going to divide it by 5.76. I can also move the pi though, because these are all multiply, so I can divide on all of them. And I can divide by 1r to get rid of the squared, okay? So that's like having an exponent of 1. When you divide exponents, that you subtract them. So the squared will cancel out, the r will cancel, the pi's will cancel, 5.76 will cancel. Okay, divide by the same thing on this side. R's cancel, pi's cancel. You're left with 31.68 divided by 5.76. On the left side, I'm left with r. So these I just divide, and that gives me 5.5. So a little different setup, but same idea. So take a pause and try to set up number 8. When you click play, I will have the proportion there for you. Okay, you should have this proportion, so I'm going to cross multiply now. When I do that side, there's no constants besides 7.54, so everything else I'm just attaching to the end. All right, and when I do this side, the only constants are 27.14 and 2. So I multiply those, which is 54.28. And then I still have the pi and the r. All right, I want to divide by 7.54 pi r. That gets rid of my squared, cancels the pi's, cancels the 7.54. Divide by the same thing on this side, cancels r's, cancels pi's. 54.28 divided by 7.54 is not going to come out to a whole number, but it gives us r is approximately 7.2 because it was 19. Okay, you will have a quiz next class. The quiz review is at this page and the next page showing you what you're looking for. You will get your central and inscribed angle formulas, but you will not receive the proportion setup that we did today. So make sure you have a good understanding of that. Okay, have a good day. And don't forget, please don't get behind on your homeworks for this unit. It can be a lot of information, okay? So don't get behind.